Good morning, and thank you all for joining us for the open forum for the president position at TCAT Jackson. My name's April Preston, and I'm the TBR Associate Vice Chancellor for Human Resources and Payroll Services, and I'll be moderating this meeting this morning. I want to let you know that this is being recorded, and it'll be shared out on the TBR residential website for those who either want to watch it again or who weren't able to watch the entire thing or who perhaps missed it. You can let your colleagues and friends know that it is available and will be available out there for 1 week. So 1 week from today. Also available on that same website, which is where this link to this recording is also going to be, is the TBR survey form. I encourage all of you to submit your comments through that form. The Chancellor takes it very seriously. She reviews all the comments that are received. So please do not put your comments in chat, but rather use the survey form that's available on the TBR presidential website. Right. So for those of you that are watching remotely, please know that you can ask your questions by typing them in the chat feature, and I will read them. I will not read the names associated with the questions, just the questions. And for those of you in a group setting, you can let one individual know, and that person can type them in for you. We'll give a few minutes to allow for typing and to formulate the questions. If you have any questions throughout, please don't hesitate to let me know. As I said, I will be monitoring the chat and can respond through that method. So with that, Heath, let's go ahead and get started and have you share with us why it is you are interested in the presidential position at TCAT Jackson. And also, what specifically about TCAT Jackson makes you want to serve as the next president of the college?
Well, thank you, April. Good morning, everyone, and I appreciate everyone logging in this morning. I hope you've had a great weekend. But I think I can answer that in two ways. I feel like I've kind of cheated here. I've been here since October the 1st. So what I'll say, first of all, is the reason I want to be the president here is I've had the opportunity to work with some amazing individuals over the last few months. They're some of the most caring people for their students, for each other, and they've been very supportive to me. I think that's the first way that I can answer that question. The second way is at a 50,000 foot view, not knowing anything about TCAT Jackson, is if you've read my resume or if you know me, you know I'm passionate about technical education. I'm passionate about helping folks understand their purpose and find that purpose through hands-on training, and very passionate about helping our community and through education and through economic development. So I think those are the two reasons why that I'm very interested in being the next president of TCAT Jackson.
Okay, thanks, Heath. And what would you consider your management style?
Probably a mix between a coach and servant leader. I think the folks that I've worked with so far know that I'm very passionate about coaching. You know, that's the number one way I think in helping people is coaching them through the process. So, and I enjoy serving people as well.
Great. So, as you know, a president must exercise good judgment in dealing with sensitive issues between people and groups. Describe your most challenging conflict between employees and how did you handle it?
So are you looking for a recent one or at any time?
Any time is fine.
Well, several times I've had conflict between employees, and I think it's very important my style is and how I've handled this in the past specifically was to go to each person and work to understand their issue. So I think getting both sides of the story is the most important thing. And then sitting down with them to talk with them objectively to ensure that we're all on the same page and we're all working towards the same mission and the same goal.
Okay. This question is about your decision-making skills. Tell us how you go about making a decision. Tell us about a difficult decision you made and the process you used to reach a decision, and how then did you communicate that decision?
Well, the number one thing that I try to lead with here with our leadership team is the first thing that we always talk about is we have to do the right thing. What is the right thing? And we've recently had some difficult decisions to make about students on attendance and things of that nature. And how we've done that is we've organized a committee. We give the student the opportunity to come in um, to speak with us, even after they have exceeded the attendance policy. We always want to sit down with them and understand why they may have exceeded that policy. And the team, we take a collective approach with the team to ensure we're doing the right thing for the student, but also for the integrity of the institution as well.
Can you tell us about one of your one-on-one experiences with students?
Well, one of my most positive ones that I can think of in my time in technical education was a few years ago with a third year apprentice. And I remember when the apprentice started, he wasn't very happy that he's going to have to go through the program. And he came to my office in year three and he said, I didn't realize how much that this program would change my life, not only from what I've learned, but from the people that I've met. And it's starting to make a true difference in my life. I think I'm an apprentice graduate, and that was probably one of the most exciting things that I've heard. I've had many student interactions, most of them positive, but that's probably one of the highlights of my career, seeing that light come on for that apprentice.
What is your preferred mode of communication, and how frequently do you communicate with your cabinet, staff, boards, community partners, organizations, constituencies, etc.?
So my preferred is in person. Uh, I think it's the most effective. Our cabinet has set up an every 2 week meeting here, our leadership team. We've missed a few recently, but we have had several since I've been here. I think those have been very effective. I've learned a lot and enjoyed getting to do that. So every 2 weeks with our leadership team, I, I enjoy just walking around and talking to the faculty and the students. Um, that's my preferred way to talk with our faculty and our students is to walk around and see what they're doing and talk with them about projects and get to understand what they're doing. Involved in the chamber board here in Jackson, so that's once a month. We also the chamber organizes a monthly presidential breakfast with some of the higher education presidents here in Jackson. So I've enjoyed getting to know them through that process as well.
Right. Heath, as you may well be aware, Tennessee has a goal to drive to 55% by 2025. What do you know about this goal, and where do you see TCAT Jackson achieving that goal? Do you agree that the number of certificates and diplomas is an appropriate way to measure success?
I could probably talk all day on this one, but from the latest numbers that I've heard, we might be a little behind on that. But what I think TCAT Jackson, before me, they've done a great job in in working to be creative about that, especially through dual enrollment. I think we're working with 11 different school systems. We're in over 15 high schools with over 1,700 dual enrollment students. Uh, we've been leading the pack here. I can't take the credit for that, but it's a great team here that's been working really hard on that for several years. So I think that's the way to combat that, is to ensure students have opportunities early. Do I think the credentials and certificates are a great way to measure? Um, I do. Um, and why do I think that? And my team here and some of that have been around me are probably tired of hearing my definition for workforce development. But when it comes to workforce development, um, I don't see it starting with us teaching a student how to use a milling machine, how to use a lathe, or how to wire a circuit necessarily. It starts with us helping the students understand purpose and giving them the confidence to pursue that purpose. And there's no better way to give students purpose and confidence than through a certificate, through a certificate that matters, that can help them in the workforce. So I think that's my short summary of On Drive to 55 and the importance of certificates.
Okay, thanks. How do you envision partnerships with local and regional universities, for instance, University of Memphis, particularly in health-related areas of study?
But I think TBR has done a great job on articulation models throughout the state. But I do envision, we have the opportunity uh, as individual institutions to build even stronger articulation models. So I see us working closer with them on an individual basis, to with their faculty, with our faculty, and sitting down to understand what's being taught, in our health related programs, or even our non health related programs, to see how that we could align that to their current curriculum and create a pathway, a clear and consistent pathway for our students to continue their education if they wish to do so.
Okay, what principles do you apply when allocating the financial resources generated by tuition fees and state support to academic and non-academic units? What's the process you use in making these decisions? And if you can, tell us about a difficult budget decision you've had to make.
Okay. Well, that's for me at this institution. This came down to talking with the vice presidents here, understanding their programs. I have a history with a lot of the industrial trade programs and understanding that already. Um, here we've the budgets have been fairly well allocated. Recently, we've had some issues with our budget and HVAC. But what I've done is I've sit down with our faculty and our vice president, uh, to let them know that even though we may be short on money, if there's a product or a tool that we need uh, to continue their learning, especially if there's a tool that may be causing a safety hazard, we will make a way to do that, and we have made a way to do that most recently in our HVAC, to ensure that students are able to continually learn in a safe manner. So it comes down to me to having that conversation, understanding the need and understanding what that is, and uh, just having that open door approach to sit down and talk about that need.
As you know, students are the reason the TCAT's there, the reason it exists. So how do you show that you and the institution value students? What have you done to involve students in the overall direction of the college? And how have you personally been involved with student recruitment and retention?
So in the short time here, one of the things that I've tried to do is, and I haven't gotten around to every class, but is to go around and talk to students. Um, I've done that in our IMIA program, in our collision repair program, and our automotive. Our most recent class of machine tool, I haven't gotten the chance to talk to many of those, but I think number one is getting to know them as best I can is the best way for us to work on retention. But I think us as a faculty and staff, if our students know that we care about them, not only is that going to help us with retention, it's going to help them recruit their family and friends. I've also been involved in our career fairs here to some extent, and speaking with a lot of our employers uh, in the recruiting field for our students. Also, we've had several discussions about marketing. We have increased our budget for marketing, for our social media marketing. So those are a few ways that I have um, gotten involved with our students in recruiting here.
And the next question, how do you envision ways to maximize the utilization of the current space occupied by TCAT Jackson, the main campus as well as the off-campus sites? And what are your experiences in finding ways to accommodate students' varying work schedules?
So I think um, to maximize the current space that we have, I think that one comes with a continual involvement with our faculty, understanding their needs, also understanding industry needs. What new equipment do we need? How do we make that fit? You know, in my past experience, when we outfitted labs, one of the things that we worked really hard on doing is to ensure that the equipment was mobile, uh, so that the lab space could be rearranged or used for a different skill set, things like that. So I think ensuring that when you get ensure that that's easily moved, easily transformed into a different type of space is what I've done in the past. But again, the number one way to ensure that we maximize our space is continual involvement with our faculty and our staff and our industry there.
And what about the students' varying work schedules?
So we've recently come out with a new work-based learning process, um, and our faculty have worked really well with some of our existing industry here to ensure that we are able to accommodate those different schedules. We've got two new partnerships here that are working really well, I believe, um, specifically in our IMIA program and in our tool and die program as well. I'm a little hesitant about naming companies here, but it seems to be going really well.
Right. Tell us about your experience in establishing dual enrollment and working with the high schools.
Well, again, here at TCAT Jackson, I'm very early in building those partnerships. A lot of work has already been done before I came. The last institution that I worked for, one of the most successful things that we did was create summer dual enrollment. Um, I, and I'll have to admit, I was hesitant about summer dual enrollment. Um, but when we signed up 13 students for welding dual enrollment, um, we had all 13 show up 7:30 the morning that it started. They were there for 10 weeks, 5 days a week, and we had to make them leave on the last day. So it was an eye opener for me, and it helped me realize that our students are really hungry for these type of opportunities. And I actually spoke to the CTE director where that happened, where we did that. We started it 3 years ago. I spoke to him this weekend, and it's still going strong. So those are some of my highlights in working and creating kind of a non-traditional pathway for dual enrollment. Because in the past, that had never really been heard of to do that during the summer.
Can you tell us what one of the most difficult decisions you've needed to make in your current role, and what was the outcome?
Well, again, the reason we're all here is students. And one of the most difficult decisions that I've had to make is whether to allow a student to continue. And, that was in one of our programs recently. I try to objectively go through this, and we didn't have the evidence for the student to continue. Um, it was difficult. The student was upset. Um, but again, back to what I said earlier, I think it's important that we approach these things objectively, but still trying to work to understand the student. Sometimes those things are not always easy, and you have to make the hard decision and give the student some time to rethink um, their priorities. And that was the most difficult thing for me here so far, has been to release a student.
Do you foresee long-term success continuing in area high schools outside of Madison County? And if so, what would be your plan to expand those opportunities?
Well, I definitely think that it's going to expand. We've got some great folks on the ground that are working every day with our school superintendents, with our CTE directors, and working to understand new programs. So, I think just building relationships is how we're going to do that. Um, looking at how we can help them improve their labs. So, I think just a continuation of what we're doing with those relationships and building new relationships as we get new CTE directors in our system, just ensuring that we continually communicate with those folks and help them understand what we can offer to their current students.
What, for better or worse, have you learned from watching other presidents with whom you've worked? And do you think you'll have a different approach? As you mentioned, you've been interim now for about 6 months, but talk to us a little about that if you can.
Um, I think what I've learned in the many calls that I've had with presidents is and the past president here is there's protection in policy. Uh, there's protection for the students, protection for the faculty and staff, and protection for the institution. So just, when you have an issue, refer to the policy, refer to your colleagues. So what have you done here? And that's, I've found a lot of support from the current presidents. Um, and I guess one of the things that maybe not so positive that I've learned is, or that I've seen, is maybe some people not being as involved or having the understanding that they need to make decisions. But I think that's very important, just to have that continual interaction and understanding.
At the end of 1 year as president, what do you expect to have accomplished?
Well, I think we've got a major economic development project going on in Haywood County. I hope at the end of 1 year that we will have a very robust onboarding process for them in the TCAT system. But just as importantly, we've got some existing industry here that I would love to see us continue to build our non-credit or credit industry apprenticeship programs. Since I've been here, I think we've added, not that I did the work here, I just was here to support, but a new program down in Fayette County with 22 new apprentices in industrial maintenance. So I think building those relationships with our existing industry are just as important as the new industries that are coming along. There's some great projects coming right here in Madison County. So my first year, I want to continue building those relationships and helping them with their onboarding process as well through effective and meaningful training programs. I would love to put a number on the number of apprentices I would like to see, but some of my staff may come get me or something, so I won't say that right now. So.
Tell us about 3 major accomplishments related to work of which you are most proud.
Well, I think educationally would be what I've been able to attain there. My associate's degree in instrumentation and automatic control systems, I was very proud to obtain that. But then after that, I was able to obtain a 4-year apprenticeship in welding and pipe fitting as a 27-year-old. I'd never struck an arc in my life until I got on the apprenticeship program with Heath McMillan. And to say that was difficult was an understatement. But one of the things I'm most proud of, I think, in my accomplishments. And then graduate school after that. And then obtaining the position at Northeast State as the Executive Director of Economic and Workforce Development. We were able to take the number of partnerships there from 2 to 11 for apprenticeships. And just recently heard that there are over 20 partners now. So it's good to see that, what we started and where they are now, and it continues to grow. And then, my third accomplishment would be, being selected as the Executive Vice President for the Blue Oval Project. If you knew where I came from, you'd be very shocked to know that I've had this opportunity. So I'm grateful for that. And so those would probably be my 3 biggest accomplishments in work.
You mentioned where you came from, so talk to us about how you were introduced to technical education.
My grandfather was a carpenter, and one of his best friends was an electrician, and they would do remodel projects. And I was always interested in the electrical because I thought just by watching it had less math, but come to find out it didn't. But my grandfather's friend, initially taught me how to wire circuits in a residential environment, and then later on in the 8th grade, I decided that I was going to vocational school. And the vocational school, this is in Southwest Virginia, not West Virginia, but the southernmost west part of the state of Virginia. I enrolled in vocational school, and in order to select a program, you had to do a rotation. I did a rotation through the machine shop. I did a rotation through drafting and CAD. Well, we didn't have CAD at that time. I was a little too old for that, but we just had rulers and pencils. But then I had to do a rotation through carpentry, and then my last rotation was through the electrical program. And I was able to graduate high school after selecting the electrical program as a certified residential electrician. That's kind of how I was introduced to it. And then through the electrical portion, I ended up going to Northeast State Community College and getting my degree in instrumentation and automatic control systems, but I've had a long journey after that in a lot of different careers.
Great. Describe your experience in having to rapidly prioritize and meet many conflicting demands while exhibiting integrity and sound judgment.
Well, probably one that we've all faced recently was the COVID year. Um, so we, as you know, at Northeast State, training apprentices where I was, and TCATs as well, uh, we were faced with either come back or you don't go forward. And we had to come back in June of 2020, face to face. And we had to make a lot of changes to our class sizes, to our class schedule. We were able to work through over a year and a half with those protocols in place, with no cases of spread during the pandemic. So probably one of the most significant things and changes that I've seen and had to work through were those protocols and ensuring that we still met our customers' demands in training and the apprenticeship training.
So talk to us a little bit about what the advantages and disadvantages you see in technical education when compared to 2 and 4-year college degree programs.
Well, I think when you think about technical colleges, they provide sometimes a quicker, more transparent path to a career than say a 4-year institution. Not to say if you really researched out the pathway in the 4-year institutions that there's not a clear pathway, but a lot of times the technical schools can provide a quicker, faster way to a career. And when we're looking to serve justice involved or underserved communities, it's very important that sometimes that we can offer a faster way to a good career. So I think that's one of the advantages, one of the number one advantages that I see um, in technical education.
Any disadvantages in comparison to a 2 and 4-year college?
Yeah, I don't know that I see any disadvantages that because if that's what a person's good at, I think we need to really encourage them to follow that pathway. Um, but I think it's it's important that we offer proper articulation as they continue to learn and as they continue to understand career progression to give them that opportunity to continue. But when it comes to technical education, I I really can't see any disadvantages there because even if you do get certified in a technical path and you choose not to go that pathway, um, there's a lot of advantages I think that it's going to help you in your personal life um, as far as your own repairs or critical thinking on things that you need to do in the future.
What do you think can be done in our communities to create more excitement over the potential of technical education and technical careers?
I think number one is through stories uh, by highlighting successful people that have taken this pathway. Um, I can go stand in front of people with my tie on and talk to them about technical education all day, but it means a whole lot more if they can actually see a person that's in it. You always hear the term, you can't, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And we think about these career fairs. I tell people all the time, it's not very effective just to stand behind a table and say, come be an electrician for us. Because if the students can't see how to do it, probably not going to have a lot of excitement to do it. So I think getting folks out there that have actually done it, been successful, and telling their story. I think our chamber's doing great work here with the Loop program, with work-based learning programs. I think some of our industries here are doing a great job with upskilling, sending their folks back to school, giving them that pathway to continue their education. So I think more of that, telling the stories of those industries that have done that. We talk about one of the best ways to retain employees, in my opinion, is through education. When an employee sees that a company's investing in them, it's going to create instant loyalty. And so I think that's another way to create that excitement is when they provide the employee with opportunities to continue their education.
What suggestions do you have to help students with barriers to completion, such as working and going to school, single parents, mental health issues, or caretakers of family members?
Well, I think number one is talk to us. Let us know your barriers. There's a lot of things out there, a lot of resources there that we can help with. So, I think number one, talk to your teacher, talk to your faculty member, talk to your student services representative. There's a lot of things there but number one, if we don't know, we can't help. But what I can tell you is if we do, we are concerned about helping, and our priority is to help you.
Where do you see the vision for TCAT Jackson for the next 5 years?
Well, growth is number one, and I'll say healthy growth. We want to ensure as we grow that we grow together. It's not about just number of students. As we grow, we want to ensure that we are growing staff. We want to ensure that we've got staff to handle that growth. So, the number one, the only way that we're here is because of students. And then number two is because of our industry. So as we grow our number of students, we also want to grow our employees, but then we want to grow partnerships with our current industry and the new industry that may come into our region. So I would sum that growth up with three things: is number of students, growth of our faculty and staff, and growth of our partnerships.
Do you have any programs that you would like to see expanded or added?
Well, I don't want anybody to take any offense to this, but when we look at the amount of manufacturing that's coming to this region, we've got to expand our industrial maintenance and our tool and die programs and our machine tool. Those programs are kind of the linchpin to making things. But then when you think about economic development, there's a statistic out there: for every manufacturing job you have, there's 7 supporting jobs created. So as those programs grow, we've got to continually look at our CIT programs, our nursing programs, because there's going to be growth there as well. So if I pinpoint one, which is manufacturing, you can't fail to look at the others, because when manufacturing grows, everything grows.
Talk to us about what you see as the role of the president of the TCAT.
Well, I think it goes back to that leadership style. Number one, coaching our staff and our faculty, getting to know folks here, getting to understand barriers, and so that we can have that healthy growth. And you can't do that if you don't get to know your folks. And that's the number one thing for me, is to get to know them and understand how I can help them to grow.
What's been your experience with assessment and making data-driven decisions? And give us some examples if you can.
Well, that goes back to my days in at Eastman Chemical. For the most part, we were very data driven when it came to hiring staff. We were data driven on occupations. It was an aging. We had an aging infrastructure, and we looked at a lot of data when it came to piping issues, electrical issues, and structural issues. And we would make decisions on staffing in that manner. We used a lot of data on preventive maintenance as well, as we worked on reliability of the plant. As you know, in manufacturing, sustainability and reliability are two very important pieces of the puzzle, and those can only be calculated through good data. And that's probably one of the most significant pieces that I've used in recent years. I think there's a lot of in education. I think there's a lot of data that we can look at as far as who we serve and how we serve them. So as I continue my career in education, I plan to work to understand that data better as well, on how we can recruit folks and how we can retain folks. I'm a huge fan of cohort-based education, and I think cohorts do a few things for you. They help build a relationship between the students and the instructor, which ultimately breeds retention, and then lastly breeds completion. So I think we really have some work to do around understanding how important cohort education can be for education.
Okay. Describe for us your experiences in obtaining grants, major gifts, or other funding opportunities, either for your current position or former positions.
So my most experience comes from my former position, of course, when we worked with the Project Inspire grant. That was a $15 million grant and a $10 million grant through ECD. Those grants allowed us to do significant work in Northeast Tennessee, especially with Eastman Chemical and the surrounding industry there. It allowed us to greatly increase the capability that Northeast State had to offer technical education in credit and non-credit ways. So that's been my most recent experience there. We did have a very successful dual enrollment grant there that allowed us to purchase equipment to expand dual enrollment, which is still taking some time, but I've talked with them last week actually, and they're experiencing significant growth there as well. Here, we do have a grant coordinator that seems to be doing a great job and in securing grants. And we've recently worked to ensure that we're maximizing all those funds through the HERF funds and things like that. So not a lot of experience here at TCAT Jackson, but I'm sure we'll get more of that soon.
So most people, when they start a new position, they're met with challenges. Maybe they have some limitations uh, and need some extra support to be successful in that position. What do you see as the major challenge if you were offered and accepted as the president of TCAT Jackson, not the interim, but the president? And maybe which areas would you be looking for a little extra support?
There's a great team here, but I think um, at, we've experienced phenomenal growth in dual enrollment, and we've already had several conversations on how we can increase the support there. So I think that's the number one thing for us to ensure that we are providing the support to our schools in dual enrollment. But then how do we ensure that those dual enrollment students want to continue their education with us? I think that's number one for us is supporting that effort.
We recognize that we're living in very troubling times and that we may never go back to the way things were prior to COVID. In the spirit of trying to find a silver lining in our new reality, what do you see as some of the opportunities that can emerge for TCAT Jackson over the next few years?
Well, when you look at the amount of economic growth that is happening here, just in Madison County alone, um, see great opportunity for the folks here. I see great opportunity for new folks coming in. Um, number one, the number one way to leverage those opportunities, I think, is through relationships that build strong partnerships.
Hey, Heath. Those were all the specific questions that we have at this time. If you, well, hold on, hold that thought. We have one more coming in. Most programs are only accessible to students who are available during day hours. Any ideas for accommodating those who are interested in the TCAT, but their work schedules preclude them from attending?
That's a great question, and we have had several discussions about night programs.